Thank you for joining us for today's video presentation. After this video teaching, Brenda and I invite you to visit our website, where you will find many free resources and our video archives of previous teachings. Our bookstore has all of our current books and many of our teachings available on DVD. Also, right there on the home page is a sign-up form for our email list where you will receive our exclusive monthly newsletter. With the newsletter, you will get access to teachings, Bible research tools and resources, a monthly biblical calendar and Bible reading schedule following the traditional Torah portions, and other exclusive materials and access to future special events. We know that you will enjoy the teaching today, and after the video, stay tuned. We have a special offer just for you, only available for a short time. Enjoy the video. Shalom.
The Feast of Tabernacles is celebrated by building and living in a hut or booth for 7 days. During those 7 days, special branches are combined with the Etrog or citron fruit and waved in rejoicing. Leviticus 23:40-43. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of beautiful trees, branches of palm trees, the boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. You shall keep it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. What is the significance of waving fruit and branches? Why remember that God had the children of Israel live in booths? I'm Brenda Cathcart, and this is Shadows of the Messiah. Living in booths and waving branches actually have quite a lot to do with each other. The Hebrew word translated as booths in this passage is the word sukkah, number 5521 in Strong's Concordance. It means a temporary dwelling such as a booth, hut, lair, pavilion, or tent. The plural of this word is sukkot, which is why this feast is called Sukkot. The word sukkah is rarely used outside the context of this feast. Its first use is as a temporary shelter that Jacob built for his cattle on his journey home to the Promised Land. He settled for a short period of time at Sukkot, so named because he built Sukkot, temporary shelters for his cattle. Genesis 33:17. And Jacob journeyed to Sukkot, built himself a house, and made booths for his livestock. Therefore the name of the place is called Sukkot. Sukkah is also used in reference to pavilions military leaders would live in while on a campaign, a covert a hunter would use to lie in wait for his prey, and a hut erected in a vineyard, probably for a seasonal dwelling place. A sukkah is a shelter from the weather, a hiding place, a place of rest. When God had the children of Israel remember that He made them live in booths, we see that He provided shelter and protection for them. Another way that God provided shelter and protection was through the presence of the Shekinah glory. Exodus 13:21 and 22. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night from before the people. The cloud of God's presence led them on their journey and provided shade from the sun. The pillar of fire assured them of God's presence and provided light and heat in the night. Isaiah says that there will be a sukkah over the entire city of Jerusalem during the reign of Messiah. Isaiah 4:4-6. When the Lord has washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and purged the blood of Jerusalem from her midst by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning, then the Lord will create above every dwelling place of Mount Zion and above her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For over all the glory there will be a covering, and there will be a tabernacle, a sukkah, for shade in the daytime from the heat, for a place of refuge, and for a shelter from storm and rain. Building and living in the sukkah during the Feast of Booths is a dramatic remembrance that God is our shelter, our place of refuge, our light, and our protection. While the children of Israel were in the wilderness, God provided the manna for food and the water from the rock that followed them. He even made sure that their shoes and clothing never wore out. Deuteronomy 29:5. And I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes have not worn out on you, and your sandals have not worn out on your feet. The other element of the sukkah is its temporary nature. God had the children of Israel dwelling in Sukkot in the wilderness because the wilderness was not their home. After God formally accepted them as His people at Mount Sinai, it was time to bring them home. God had a land already prepared for them. Exodus 6, 7, and 8. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God, who brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as a heritage. I am the Lord. In a broader sense, those of us who follow Messiah recognize that our dwelling places on earth, whether tents, houses, or castles, are only temporary dwelling places. God has taken us as His own people, and eventually He will take us to our new home. Abraham demonstrated this faith in the world to come as related in Hebrews 11, 9, and 10. By faith he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. A last element of the sukkah is remembering the overall wilderness experience. The tabernacle of God was in the center of the camp, with one family of Levites and 3 of the tribes set up at each of the 4 compass points. Anytime anyone looked to the center of the camp, they saw the pillar of cloud or of fire. God lived in the midst of them, at the very center of their camp. Living in the sukkah recalls the whole wilderness experience when God was a tangible presence in their lives. So why remember that God had the children of Israel live in booths? It reminds us that God is our shelter, our provider, our protector. It reminds us that in our journeys, God is with us. It reminds us that our presence here on this life is just the journey. It is not our permanent home. We look forward to the time that we will be with Him. We look forward to the time that God's dwelling place will be forever with the people He created on the earth He created for us. Now we turn our attention to the waving of the various kinds of branches together with the fruit of the land. This collection of 4 different species of plant and fruit is called a lulav. The fruit of the beautiful trees is taken to mean the etrog or citron, and the boughs of the leafy trees to mean the myrtle. The other 2 species are already specifically named as the palm and the willow. The Bible doesn't give a reason for choosing these 4 species. It only commands that they be used for rejoicing. The Sadducees and modern Karaite Jew interpreted this to mean that they were to use these 4 species to build their Sukkot. The Pharisees, who passed their traditions down to today's Jews, interpreted this to mean that the 4 species were to be used specifically to rejoice. But the deeper question is, why use these elements to rejoice? We can't answer this question definitely. Indeed, there have been many answers posed throughout the centuries. Alfred Edersheim, in his book, The Temple, Its Ministry and Service, explains that one possible explanation is that the 4 species represent the stages of their journeys in the wilderness. The palm branches represent the valleys and plains. The myrtle represents the bushes on the mountain heights. The willows represent the brooks from which God had given them to drink, and the etrog represents the promise of the fruit in the land He had given to them. A modern understanding of the 4 species is that they represent the 4 types of Jews in service to God. Bringing the 4 species together in the lulav reminds us that we must be united in our service to God. Let's see if looking at the time of year and the context of the celebration can help us pose a broader answer to this question. The Feast of Booths is celebrated at the end of the harvest year. They were to rejoice in the abundant provision that God made for them that year. Both the work of their hands and the abundance of crops are included in God's blessing. Deuteronomy 16:13 through 15. You shall observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days when you have gathered from your threshing floor and from your winepress. And you shall rejoice in your feast, you and your son and your daughter, your male servant and your female servant, and the Levite, the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow who are within your gates. 7 days you shall keep a sacred feast to the Lord your God in the place which the Lord chooses, because the Lord your God will bless you in all your produce and in all the work of your hands, so that you surely rejoice. Right now, the children of Israel are beginning to return to the land God gave them. God says that when they return, the land of Israel would freely produce fruit for them. Ezekiel 36:8. But you, O mountains of Israel, you shall shoot forth your branches and yield your fruit to my people Israel, for they are about to come. However, the abundance of crops is not possible without an abundance of water. In Israel, there were no great rivers like that of the Nile River that could be used for irrigation. Israel had to depend on the rainfall. God told the children of Israel that He chose to give them that particular land because they would have to depend on Him for rainfall. Deuteronomy 11:10 through 15. For the land which you go to possess is not like the land of Egypt from which you have come, where you sowed your seed and watered it by foot as a vegetable garden. But the land which you cross over to possess is a land of hills and valleys, which drinks water from the rain of heaven. A land for which the Lord your God cares. The eyes of the Lord your God are always on it, from the beginning of the year to the very end of the year. And it shall be that if you earnestly obey my commandments, which I command you today, to love the Lord your God and serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will give you the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your grain, your new wine, and your oil. And I will send grass in your fields for your livestock, that you may eat and be filled. Moses explained that God's eyes were always on the land of Israel. He cared for the land as well as the people. If they would obey His commandments, then God would bless them with an abundance of rain on the land, which would then drink it in. The land would yield its fruit for the children of Israel to enjoy. The Feast of Booths falls right before the beginning of the rainy season in Israel. As they rejoiced in the abundance that God had provided for them through that year's harvest, they also looked forward to the coming of the rain, which would determine the size of the next harvest. Rabbi David Sampson wrote in his article, 4 Species in a Nutshell, that the 4 species chosen for rejoicing at the Feast of Booths all grow around water. All of this tells us that the 4 species were chosen to remind us that God is our provider. Whether you wave the species before God or use them to build a sukkah, their use is an acknowledgement that God is King. We acknowledge that His eyes are always on His land and His people. We depend on Him for the rain from heaven that nourishes the ground. The practice of waving the 4 species east, south, west, north, up to the heavens and down to the earth are an acknowledgement that God is sovereign over all of creation. Revelation 21:3 and 4. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them, and they shall be His people. God Himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Between building and living in booths and rejoicing with the 4 species, we understand that the Feast of Booths is the time of year that we remember that God is our King, our shelter, our provider, our protector. We rejoice that we are His people and always under His care. We remember that our journey in this life is temporary, but He will be with us throughout our journey. We rejoice that He is taking us to a land that freely yields its fruit to His people. We look forward to the time when He will once again dwell with His people. Thanks for watching today. I'm Brenda Cathcart, and this has been Shadows of the Messiah. Shalom and be blessed.
Thank you for watching today's video presentation. The fall feast days are upon us, and it is a time of retrospection, forgiveness, repentance, and celebration. But what are these feast days really all about? Do they have any real significance for the Christian? Now that you have come to a Hebraic understanding of the Scriptures and the Jewishness of Messiah Yeshua and the disciples, it's time to dig deeper and take a closer look at these feast days that we normally associate with the Jewish religion. We at Moed Ministries invite you to join us on this journey of discovery into the Feast of the Lord by participating in an exclusive online program designed to examine these feasts in detail. We have developed a study called Divine Appointments with God, which will take you through each of the feast days, showing you how and why God ordained them from the beginning of creation, and how Yeshua is the ultimate fulfillment of them. Divine Appointments with God is offered as an online class where you can participate along with us and our home-based Bible study group. We have available on our website free access to pre-recorded video sessions covering all the feast days, including the Sabbath. All you need is the accompanying student workbook, and you're all set. This study is perfect for your small home-based Bible study group, for teen and adult study groups, for your family study time, and for the motivated individual. To get the Leader's Guide or Student Workbook for Divine Appointments with God at a discount price, you must order through the Moed Ministries online bookstore. Just go to the web address that you see on your screen, or using your mobile device, just click on the QR code. We are excited to offer Divine Appointments with God at the special discount price of just $12 plus shipping. This special offer is only available to shipping addresses in the U.S. and Canada, and you must order from the Moed Ministries website bookstore. For shipping addresses outside the U.S. and Canada, please order from Amazon.com. Thank you again for watching today's teachings. We hope you enjoyed it. Shalom and be blessed.